Base 49b, and today's daf is daf Nun 50. We are in the last 7 lines of Mem Tes Amud Base. In the Mishnah, it said that anybody that leaves Yerushalayim with meat that is from Kachim, and the meat of a korban must remain within Yerushalayim. And he brought it out, and so he has to bring it back in and burn it in front of the Beis HaMikdash. But he's already a certain distance. So when does he have to go back, and when can he burn it where he is? Just as the beginning of the Mishnah, where there's an obligation to go back to remove a chametz, versus where he can just nullify it where he is by accepting in his heart that it is worthless to him. And the Mishnah made that comparison. So we saw over there in the Mishnah, there's a machlokas between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda whether you need a kazayas or a kabetza. Lameimer, the Rabbi Meir savar kabetza. To tell us what you're saying is that Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that a kabetza is a minimum amount of food, and less than that is not worthy or not a considerate amount of food. Rabbi Yehuda savar kazayas nami chashiv. Rabbi Yehuda says no, that even an olive size is enough to count as a significant amount of food. And that's why Rabbi Yehuda says you have to go back even for an olive size of chametz or a olive size of meat from a korban. And Rabbi Meir says it has to be a kabetza. Verminu. So we have a contradiction. Ad kamei mezamnin. In regards to benching on having eaten bread, how much food does somebody have to eat in order that they should have to say Birkas Hamazon? How much is the minimum amount they would eat? And then if there were 3 together, they would make a zimun. They would one invite the other to bench, and then one would say the bracha for everyone. So when is this obligation? What's the minimum amount of eating? And there, it's the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda and Marad Kabetza, Rabbi Yehuda says the minimum amount of eating is going to be an egg size, whereas so Ad Kazayas, the first opinion is an olive size, and Rabbi Yehuda says Kabetza an egg size, and Rabbi Meir is a Stam Mishnah. An unattributed part of the Mishnah would be Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says an egg size. So that's just the opposite of our, where the minimum amount of food, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is an olive size, and that's enough to go back for, whereas Rabbi Meir is the one that says an egg size. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mechlefes Hashitas. Rabbi Yochanan says, indeed, you have to swap out one of the 2 versions and make Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir fit. Amar Abai says, no, there's no need to amend the text. Lo olam lo tepach. You don't have to change the text. Hasam b'kroi pli. There, it's based on a pasuk, and the wording of the Torah when it says that you will eat, be satiated, and say a bracha. So be satiated tells us, Rabbi Yehuda is going to say over there, there's a specific need, and hacha b'svara pli. And over here, it's in logic. Hasam b'kroi pli Rabbi Meir sava v'achalta zo achila. So it says you will eat, be satiated, and bench. So v'achalta zu achila, that would be an olive size of eating. V'savata zu shtia, and being satiated doesn't mean actually eating more so that you're full, but rather that you also drink. V'achila b'kazayis, and therefore it's sufficient to just eat an olive size and be obligated in benching. Now, as Rashi and Tosfos point out, that in truth, this is going to be a derabanan, a rabbinic halacha, and usage of the pasuk here is not actually the meaning of the pasuk, but rather relying on the pasuk as something that is a rabbinic custom, because in truth, the obligation for benching in the Torah is va'achalta v'savata v'rachta. Only if you become satiated, you eat and become satiated, then you bench Hashem. But if you just have an olive size or an egg size, that's a rabbinic obligation that Klal Yisrael has accepted upon itself to say benching even if only having eaten a minimum amount. But Rabbi Meir is using the pasuk to say any achila, any amount of eating, and halachically, we've talked about this many times, that once you eat an olive size, that's called eating. Eating a crumb is not called eating. Eating an olive size is a minimum that would count as eating. However, Rabbi Yehuda savar v'achalta v'savata achila sheyesh b'savia ve'ezu ezukabetza. That no, even in this rabbinic way, we're going to require some level of satiation and beyond just regular eating. So even though you're not full, but not just an olive size. So therefore, kabetza, an egg, which is going to be multiple times the eating of an olive, and that's why you're going to at least have some level of satisfaction. In any case, it's based on a drasha of the pasuk, or asmachta of the pasuk, a reliance on the pasuk. But over here, we're actually dealing with a thought, a logic. The Rabbi Meir he's making a comparison in going back for meat of hektish for its size in comparing it to another invalidation. Once you take the meat of hektish outside of the walls of Yerushalayim, it becomes invalidated. Well, let's look at other invalidations. Where do we have another invalidation? If meat became tameh, just as the tumah of food we've seen before is at the size of an egg, so the invalidation of or the burning of the meat that it has become invalidated, the minimum amount would be an egg size. And therefore, Rabbi Meir makes that comparison, says here it's invalid, there it's invalid. If there the invalidation is at the size of a kibetza, that's when it can cause tum, or as Tosa says, even become tummy. So to here, the invalidation and the obligation to go back and burn it in its proper place is going to be only if it is the size of a kibetza and egg size. However, Rabbi Yehuda says, Chazarasa ki isura, says no, the return is like another prohibition, the prohibition of chametz. Just as you have to go back, the prohibition of chametz is by an olive. So you return to going to burn the chametz is also going to be in an olive size, in the same as how large a size of meat from kachim becomes invalid if you take it out. That would be the minimum size in olive. So if it became invalid at an olive, so you have to go back and burn it, also at an olive size. Now we're at the top of Nun Amid Aleph in the second line. Tanya Rabbi Nassan Omer, Zeb K'shtei Beitzim. Rabbi Nassan in the Brisa says that both chametz, you only have to go back for 2 egg sizes, and the size of 2 eggs, and so too for bringing back the meat that from a carbon that you had brought out to bring it back and burn it also at the size of 2 eggs. But the Chachamim did not agree to this idea. Now, we've been talking about Yerushalayim and outside of Yerushalayim and how far the meat would have to be taken out of Yerushalayim and the obligation to bring it back. So we're going to bring Psukim, which also an Agadata that talks about the spread of Yerushalayim. It'll be on that day, this is a prophecy in Zechariah, and it'll be on that day, the light, the shine of light will not be as precious or as stable. Kipon really means congealed or frozen, and so it's precious and also light and stagnant. So what this seems contradictory. My yikros of a kipon. What is it not precious, or what is precious and kipon and light? Amar Rabbi Lazar, it's light which is great and strong in this world, but in the world to come, it's that light will be stagnant or simple, not necessarily anything of great importance. Amar Rabbi Elazar says that Rabbi Yochanan Amar Elu Negoim va'Allah sheyikarim ba'olam hazeh. Rabbi Yochanan says it's the difficult subject matter of different of halachos such as Negoim and Alos, leprosies and tents in regards to the tumah of somebody who passed away in a tent under a covered space, sheyikarim heim ba'olam hazeh, which are very difficult to study in this world. But in the world to come, it'll be easy, it'll be light. Rabbi Shubba Levi says it's talking about people who consider themselves also great because of their wealth in this world. But in the world to come, they are very light, where wealth doesn't matter, but rather good deeds and Torah and important things matter. Kihad Rabbi Yosef, Bereda Rabbi Shubba Levi. Rabbi Shubba Levi's son, Rabbi Yosef, got ill. Cholash v'isnagid, and he fell into a coma. Kihad Le, when he came back to, Kihad Amalei Avuas, his father said to him, "My chazis, what did you see when you had passed out?" Amar Le Olam Hafuch Ra'isi. I saw an upside down world. El Yonim Lamata. All those that are considered high in society and wealthy and important, they were way down. V'tachtonim, and all the poor people, the people struggling who were considered the lowly people of society, Lamala, they were above on account of their good deeds. And so he said, all of societal classes and the upper echelons that collapse in the world in that world. He says you saw clarity, a world of clarity, not a world of topsy-turvy world, but a world of clarity, because really our world masks all the good deeds of people by what's considered important in the moment, in the time, and the fat of the day. And what about us, those that study Torah? That it is similar, that the honor, respect for Torah here remains in the world to come. And I heard a voice saying in the world to come, fortunate is the one who comes and his studies are with him in his hand. Whether this means that the retention is through writing, or the retention is the main thing is retention, but the idea is that somebody should study, but not only study, but they should be fortunate enough to also come with that the retention of the information they've learned. And I heard that they say, those that were killed by the government, those that are massacred on account of their being Jewish, they're so great nobody can get to where they are. Who is that referring to? We're talking about the great scholars and the leaders that the Romans had killed, Rabbi Akiva and his friends, only on account of their being murdered by the government. That's why they're great, and not on account of what they accomplished in their life. Ella Haruge Lud. It's talking about those that were killed in Lud. And this was a classic program, a siege on a city, and two people were scapegoated or scapegoated themselves. They gave themselves up in order to save the city, and as such, they earned their great reward just on account of the vicious death by the besieging parties. The pasuk continues, in the prophecy in Zechariah there, it says, "Bayomahu on that day, al al metzilos asus kodesh Hashem." On the metzilos of the horses, there will be written, "Sanctified to Hashem, kodesh Hashem." Now, what are the metzilos? There are different words that could be from that root. So we're going to have a couple of drash. So my metzilos asus. What is this metzilos of the horse? So Rabbi Shua, Amar Rabbi Shua Levi, Aser HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lo Yosef Yerushalayim Ad Shasus Ratz Umatzil. The distance that a horse can run, and the word metzilos would be and matzil, and cause shadow to be directly beneath him. Meaning, if a horse were to run out of Yerushalayim at daybreak, as far as the horse can go, to midday when the sun is directly above and the shadow of the horse is directly beneath it, that's how far Yerushalayim will spread. So Yerushalayim will spread outside of its current boundaries to become a larger city for all of the people that come. Rabbi Elazar Omer Kol Metzila Shatol Lesus Bein Einov Yekodesh Hashem. Rabbi Elazar says no. The meaning of Metzilos here is not the shade and shadow, but rather it's the adornments done to the horse around its on its head, around its eyes. Those will all be sanctified to Hashem. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Kol Biza Shabbos in Yisrael Ad Shosh Ashus Ratz Matzil Yekodesh Hashem. It's all of the bounty and all of the loot that's taken from the battles that will happen in that day. They will all be sanctified to Hashem, Bnei Yisrael. The Jews will not take them for themselves, but rather give them to the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash and the sanctification of Hashem's name. So Bishlam Lamana Amar Kol Biza Shabbat Yisrael. So according to the third opinion, Rabbi Yochanan, who says that this is the bounty collected from the wars, that they would be donated and not kept as personal gains. Shabbat Yisrael. That's why it says all the bowls. It says at the end of that verse, that's the end of that pasuk, all the bowls in the house of Hashem will be, instead of silver, but they will be gold, like the mizrakim, which is the cups that would be used to pour the blood on the mizbeach, which are gold. All the bowls will be gold. Elaman so it's talking about the wealth of the Beis Hashem. Elaman nama b'hanach tarti. But according to the version that says that the first two explanations, my hasiras beveis Hashem. So if it's talking about the spread of Yerushalayim, or it's talking about the adornments of animals that will be donated to the house of Hashem, why is it talking about the bowls and of being of gold? Indeed, that second part of the pasuk is going to be another idea. Yerushalayim is going to spread, and there'll be wealth in the Beis Hamikdash. The Matari Yisrael misnadvi, that the Bnei Yisrael become wealthy and donate to the Beis Hamikdash. Umaisi and bring it. There's a Bishlam the Madama Biza. So according to the third opinion, Rabbi Yochanan says that it's talking about the loot from the wars. Hainu d'chsiv v'lo yeh kanani od beveis Hashem tzavakos. That's why it says there will not be any more bartering going on in the house of Hashem, because Bnei Yisrael, because the Beis Hamikdash will not need a merchant to buy and sell the goods of the Beis Hamikdash, because it would be so much wealth. But if it's talking about the spread of Yerushalayim or the donations of the adornments of the animals, so my v'lo kanani, what does it mean that there will not be kanani, a merchant? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah ein kan ani. Kanani over there actually doesn't mean a merchant, and it doesn't mean a Canaanite, but rather it means it's a compound word or an abbreviation for Ein kan ani. There is no poor man here. Everybody's wealthy. Now, the Gemara challenges the first interpretation of the word Kanani. Well, Kanani minalan, or not challenges, but asks, from where do we know that the word Kanani doesn't mean a Canaanite, somebody of the indigenous Canaan people, but rather the word Kanani here means a merchant. The Ikri Tagar, that's called a merchant, that's called a Kanani. The Chsifra, it says, Vayar Sham Yehuda bas Ish Kanani. And Yehuda saw a woman who was the daughter of a man, Kanani, Ish Kanani. Now, my Kanani, what does Kanani mean over there? Ilema Kanani Mamash doesn't mean someone from the tribe of the Canaanites. After ba Avram vehizir as Yitzchak. Avram warned Yitzchak or Eliezer to wife and not to take a Canaanite wife. And ba Yitzchak vehizir as Yaakov. And Yitzchak warned Yaakov, don't take a Canaanite wife. Yehuda Azav and Nasib, and Yehuda would go and marry a Canaanite wife. Ela Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rather, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says Bas Gavra Tagra, that the word over there means the daughter of a man who was a merchant, and that's why it says the daughter Ish Kanani, a man who was Kanani. And how do I know that the word Canaan does mean merchant and not someone from the tribe of Canaanite? As we have other psukim that says so. In Hosea, the word says Canaan b'yadei mozni mirma la'ashar kahev. Canaan, in his hand are scales that are not accurate, and in doing so, it will steal from everybody, including someone he loves. So we see it's a merchant because the Canaan had nothing to do with scales and selling and buying and people that they care for. The metaphor there, or the teaching over there, is about when a merchant has a false scale. He doesn't only steal from competitors and from just random people, but even from those that he loves. Or we have another verse that explicitly says this. The merchants are her merchants are leaders, are princes. And her, you can't say, and the Canaanites are the leaders of the land, because that doesn't fit the context, but rather Canaan now are the merchants. It's in two words for those that sell merchandise versus those that do bartering. But the idea is that the business people have become the princes and the leaders of the land. And so you see from the context there that, again, that the word Kanani means merchants. And so to over here, there will not be a Kanani in the house of Hashem anymore. Well, there weren't Canaanites anyhow in the house of Hashem. What it means is the merchants who would buy and sell the needs and of the Beis Hamikdash and what had been donated to Beis Hamikdash, they would buy off of them, and there would be so much wealth that would not be needed anymore. So if there in that prophecy of Zechariah, it says a pasuk that we know well, V'haya Hashem lamelech al kol haaretz, and Hashem will be king on all of the earth. Bayom ahu, on that day, it shall be Hashem echad, God will be one, Ushmo echad, and His name will be one. The Gemara asks, what? And now there are multiple gods? Of course not. So what does it mean that and then His name will Hashem will be one? The world to come is not like this world. The world to come, in the current state of the world, when things go bad, we look and we see it as bad, and so it seems like that the attributes of Hashem are sometimes negative. Al b'suras tovasaymer, and therefore when something's good, we say Hatov HaMeitiv, Baruch Hatov HaMeitiv, bless you Hashem, who is good and does good. Val b'suras rayos, and on bad news, we say Baruch Dayan Emes, blessed are you Hashem, who is the true judge, and we don't see the good in it. But in the world to come, Kulei Hatov HaMeitiv, we will be able to retroactively see the good in everything that had happened. Ushmo echad, and His name will be one. My echad. What does it mean that His name will be one? Now His name is not one. Amar Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. Again, the world currently is not the world of the world to come. In this world, we have the four-letter name of Hashem, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. V'nikra b'alef daled, but we don't pronounce it. We pronounce it as you are our master, the name of Hashem of Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud. But in the world to come, Kulei Achad, it is all one. Nikra b'Yud Hey, it is it is both it is both pronounced and written in the same way in the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. So Rava wanted to publicly teach about this. So one of the elders said to Rava, no. In this past week's reading, when Moshe asks Hashem, what is your name? And when they ask me your name, what should I tell them? And Hashem gives multiple statements there. In the last, the right before the end of the Aliyah, it says, Zeh Shemi La'olam, this is my name forever, V'zeh Zichri L'dor Dor, and this is my remembrance from generation to generation. But over there, actually, when it says La'olam, forever, it doesn't say La'olam the way it normally would, La'olam Ksiv. It's written without the O, Vav, which usually indicates the O, but it's written without that, which means La'olam, it'll be hidden, because the world that we know, the word for the world, Olam, actually means Olam. It is a facade to the truth of what is the source of all existence. And so he said, right now you can't speak about it because right now there's still the hiddenness of the current world. La'olam ksiv. Ravina actually asked a contradiction. Ksiv zeh shemi la'olam v'zeh zichru l'dor dor. This is my name forever, and it's spelled for hiddenness, la'olam. And this is my remembrance for generation to generation. Amara Kadosh Baruch Hu, Lokashani Nichtavani Nikra, not as I am written, am I pronounced. Nichtavani b'Yud Hey, it is written in the Yud and the Hey. V'Nikrani b'Dal Aleph Dalet, but I'm pronounced in the name of Hashem Aleph Dalet. This is the a little bit of the secrets of the meaning of Hashem's names, the various attributes, and the way Hashem interacts with the world with us, and what we can see and learn about the purpose of the world and our relationship with Hashem in that purpose. Obviously, very deep stuff, beautiful for a in-depth learning another time. With this, we complete the third parak of Pesachim, Elo Ovrin, Hadron Lach Elo Ovrin, and we shall come back to you Be'ezus Hashem. We begin a new parak about the customs of before Pesach, not working on the day of Pesach, and then some other things about customs that come up and the obligations to live by the customs of the place that you live in, and that they obligate you even if you're not in the place you're in. Places that there's a custom to that you do work on Erev Pesach until midday, you would work, and the indication is, but at midday you need to stop. But in places that the custom is not to do work on the day before Pesach, on the 14th, even if though it's before Chatzos, you can't bring the Korban Pesach anyhow, and there's really no obligation at that time to do, but since there are mitzvahs to do, obviously preparation for Pesach, getting rid of the chametz, so there's a custom in that place not to do work, so you don't do it. You have to, you're obligated by the customs of your place. However, if you travel from a place where people work, and you came to visit for Pesach to a place where people don't work, it's sort of customarily not accepted not to work on that day. Or the reverse. I mean, in your hometown, they don't do work, but you came to a place, to a place that they do work. You have to be stringent by your hometown customs because that's your minhag, that's your hometown custom. And you have to also be strict about the place that you are to follow their customs as well. Now we go to Nunam base. Val Yishana Adam, and a person should not do any different than the place that he's in, not to cause strife by doing different than the local custom. So the Gemara is going to ask, you just said a contradiction, because you said that if you were strict in your hometown and people don't work in your hometown, and you come into a place that people work, you should be strict. and that's going to cause strife because it looks like you're being stricter than the locals. And we'll see the Gemara. Similarly, somebody brings produce of Shemitah. So a little bit of introduction is necessary here. The halacha is that Shemitah, you're not allowed to work the fields. However, whatever grows on its own from seeds that fell from the year before or trees which produce every year, so you have this produce. So what are you going to do with it? So you're allowed to pick whatever you need for yourself to eat from the fields, and it has to be open for others as well to do the same. And how long can you maintain that? You can it, you can keep it. So the halacha is, as long as there's some left in the field, you're allowed to keep it at home. Once there's nothing left in the field, and no pickings left out in the field, so then you have to do what's called biur, take it out of your house, put it out for free to anybody that wants it in front of your house for a certain amount of time. And then if it's not, whatever's not taken by others, you can bring back in. So that's called biur. So you're going from a place that the produce, the date for that the fields are empty of a certain product are day A, and you're going to a place where their produce is still out in the field, there's more left, and so they don't have a date they haven't come to the date of biur, of needing to put out your produce. Or vice versa, or you're coming from a place that there's still some produce left in the field, and you come to a place that it's no longer left in the field. Either way, you're now obligated to remove what your produce and put it out for others to get, because you either your hometown, that where the produce came from, there's no more produce left in the field, or the place you went to now is at that stage. So either way, you're going to be strict and have to remove your produce. Now, if you came, and the Gemara is going to explain what this means, but basically it says, why? You can go out yourself and get some. So the Gemara is first going to challenge the first idea. And the part of the Mishnah said that if you came from a place that the custom is to work until midday and not to work after midday, then that's the custom. So my area Arab Pesachim. Why are you talking about specifically Erev Pesach? On Fridays before Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov, also you're not supposed to work at some point in the afternoon. The Tanya we learned that somebody who does work on Friday afternoons or in the afternoon before Yom Tov, min hamincha ulamala, from mincha and on. And there's a question here in the text in Rashi, and the meaning of this halacha of whether it means min hamincha from the first moment you can daven mincha, which is a half hour after midday, or min hamincha ulamala is talking about what's called mincha katana. That's the last 2.5 hours of the day. Either way, there is a time on Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov also that one should no longer be doing work. Because it says that if somebody does work at that hour of the day, they will not see blessing in their work. So Gemara says, there on Shabbos, it's after mincha that it's you shouldn't do the work, but before that it's okay. Whereas hacha mechatzos, but on Erev Pesach, even at chatzos already, at midday, halachic noon, which is midday from exactly half the time between the beginning of the day, halachic beginning of the day, and halachic end of the day. So that's earlier, at least a half hour earlier, maybe 3.5 hours earlier than mincha time. Inami, or hasam smebrachu delay chazi avoshamuzi leishamantinale. There, it's not a prohibition, so he's not going to get any consequences for breaking the halacha. It's just that he doesn't see bracha, he doesn't have a blessing. It won't be as successful. Okay, but it's not prohibited. It's just a good advice. Don't work so close to Shabbos, so close to Yom Tov, because you're not going to see success in the work. Whereas here we're saying that it's a prohibition. And therefore, if somebody publicly breaks this, they would get excommunicated or punished. Gufa. So now the Gemara analyzes this. The Brisa, the statement itself was this: if somebody does work on Fridays before Shabbos or Yantif and Erev Yantif before Yantif, from Mincha and onward, and similarly, but Matzah Shabbos and Matzah Yantif, Matzah Yom Kippurim, right after Shabbos, right after Yantif, and right after Yom Kippur, while the people are still davening and saying Mariv, meaning just the time for the end of Yom Kippur, the end of Shabbos, the end of Yantif came, and everybody's saying Mariv, and somebody's rushing to do immediately begins doing work. Where there's like a little hint of like, maybe it's not time yet, and it may be causing a transgression. And that would include the fasts that were done for a drought, which in the Gemara in Tainus, it lists a process of when there's no rain in Eretz Yisrael by this date, and then you make such a fast. By this date, you do a fast plus a prayer, etc. So those public fasts on account of a drought, if somebody and a certain times of those fasts, they would make it a day of no work in order for people to focus on the drought and the prayer for the drought. And so if somebody goes to work on that day that they're not supposed to work, that would also be a hint of transgression, because it's separating yourself away from the communal troubles. Anybody that does work in those days and those times does not see blessing in their work. Tana Rabbana. So the Brisa teaches, Yesh Zorez v'niskar. There are those that are very diligent in their work and also get reward for it. V'yesh Zored v'nifsad. And there are those that are diligent in their work, but also they lose out. Yesh Shafel v'niskar. There are those that are lazy and they're not very diligent in their work, but nevertheless, they get a reward. V'yesh Shafel v'nifsad. There are those that are diligent and actually also lose out. So what does this mean? Zaraz v'niskar, somebody who's diligent but gets reward. The avid kula shabsa, all week long, diligent in his work. V'le'avid mamala shabsa, but Shabbos, erev Shabbos in the afternoon before Shabbos, stops the work, and in doing so shows that even though that they are, I don't want to say workaholic, but they're very diligent in their work. They when it comes close to Shabbos, they stop their work in order to show deference to Shabbos and preparation for Shabbos. That's somebody gets, not only are they diligent, but they also get reward. Zaretz v'nifsad, but somebody who's diligent and loses out, the avid kula shabsa v'avi mala shabsa. He works all week, so that's diligent, but also loses out because their diligence and their continuing work into right up to Shabbos and close to Shabbos, and as such, they will lose out because they will not see blessing in that section of their work. Shafal v'niskar, somebody who's lazy and gets reward. The le'avid kula Shabbos, this person actually doesn't work all week. V'le'avid b'mal Shabbos, and also doesn't work every Shabbos. So even though that it may not be with the correct intent of in honor of Shabbos, but they're not working close to Shabbos, there's a reward in that. Shafal v'nifsad, but somebody who is lazy or not diligent and then ends up also having a loss, the le'avid kula Shabbos, and not working all week, and then it comes close to Shabbos, they realize, oh, I better, I need something, some money in order to buy food for Shabbos, etc. Something I need, and they could have done it earlier and didn't. V'avid b'mal Shabbos, and they work on Friday close to Shabbos. So even though that, so that would be a loss in as much as they're not going to see blessing in their work because of the working so close to Shabbos. Amar Rav Hani Nashid and Mechuzah Afagav D'Liavdan Avita. The women of Mechuzah, which was a wealthier place, and that they didn't work at all. So even though that they don't work b'malei Shabbos, they work on Fridays, meshum mefankusa, and it's mainly because they were just very particular. The hakol yaminami leka of them, because they wouldn't work all week long as well. Nevertheless, there was some benefit and some blessing that comes to them on account of this. Rava Rami Ksiv. Rava actually asked a question and a contradiction. It says in one pasuk, Ki gadol ad shamayim chazdecha. Your kindness, Hashem, is so great that it fills all the way up to the heavens. It also says, Ki gadol me'al shamayim chazdecha. But there's another verse that says, your kindness is greater, more than the heavens, greater than this world. Okay, it's that. Why the contradiction? So if it's being done for the right purposes and the right reasons, the blessings beyond this world, above the heavens. If it's done for the wrong reason, so you did a good thing, so you get the reward, but it's not going to be the reward of somebody who does it lishma with the right intent. Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yehuda says, the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, in the name of Rav, nevertheless, a person should do what the work they do, the good deeds they do, even if it's not for the right intent, as long as it's not being done in order to spite someone else. But if it's being done for self-preservation or for self-propellance or whatever other reason somebody would have, that's not derogatory and negative to anyone, but they're doing it for selfish reasons or for alternative reasoning, but not for the main reason. Nevertheless, it's a good deed, so do it, because from that, a person will become accustomed to do good things, even for the right reason. It'll come to be done correctly. Tana Rabbanan, the Brisa taught, somebody waits for instead of working themselves, they wait for their wife to bring in the income, or for the mill to bring in the income. They will not see blessing. So the Gemara qualifies. This means schar ishtoi metkulta. It's for leasing out the mill in the market. So she's working hard, schlepping the mill around to lease it out. It's a small amount of money, and she has to embarrass herself to go through the market and schlep this around. And rechaya igrasa, and the mill is for its the leasing it. These are for a pittance. You're getting a very little in return and a lot of work and difficulty. Aval of them is Abna, but if she's actually doing business, the pasuk says that that's a wonderful thing. The Chsifra, it says, she made a garment, or she made a cloth and she sold it, and that's the Torah. The pasuk seems to be giving it a praise. Tomorrow we'll continue with other work-related Agadata teachings. Wishing you all a great day.
Make it a great day.
Yasher koach.
Yasher koach. Okay.